Greetings, Dave Dickinson here from astroguys.com. Let me flip the camera around here. And I'm just getting done with the weekly Space Hangout, and I thought it would be kind of cool, as I was mentioning on there, to discuss astronomy that's going on in 2016. Every year, I've done since 2008, on my own site. I started on AstroGuys, and now I'm doing it on Universe Today. Done it for the last 3 years. I do a big blog post. I always joke this is the blog post that takes me 6 months to write. I do 101 events in astronomy that are going on for the coming year, and I try to put it on the week. Usually people start thinking about the next year between Christmas and New Year's. So probably around the 28th or so after Christmas week, you're going to see this come out. 101 events drilled down, not quite a calendar or an almanac, not a full-fledged almanac, not quite a top 10 listicle either. I try to do it something in between that's a little more of a deep dive for the astronomy going on in the coming year. And I try to cover everything from eclipses to occultations by the moon, occultations by stars of asteroids, blue moons, black moons, supermoons, mini moons, oppositions of the various planets, close conjunctions. I try to keep it tight and only do the very best of every category. Like, say, I try to do only the close conjunctions of, say, planets that are closer, that are naked eye and closer than 1 degree. I add in asteroid occultations, but again, I try to drill them down to the very best. Now, naturally, these are only visible along very narrow paths along the world. It might be going on in Botswana, it might be going on in Boston. So, but their occultations of stars by asteroids are always very cool. I try to do ones that are brighter than 8th magnitude. I believe Regulus gets occulted by an asteroid, but it's like for PNG, Papua New Guinea, the next year. Next year, there are 4 eclipses. Hey, hi from London, England. Cool. Hey, we're talking about astronomy here for 2016. There are 4 eclipses next year. There's two solar and 2 lunar, which are the minimum number of eclipses that can occur. The total solar eclipse is in March. It's in the spring. March 9th. There you go. Kind of looking at I've got the laptop up here running, so I get these dates right. It's in March 9th, and it's over Southeast Asia. I'm going to try to get over there to it. I don't know if I'm going to make it. This is going to be the last total solar eclipse until the big one on August 21st that's going on 2017 over the US. I've never been to a total solar eclipse. A lot of people haven't. But I've seen the annular eclipse, which there is an annular eclipse going off over 2016 September 1st, Central Africa. And there are 2 penumbral eclipses, which really aren't that great. Unfortunately, we don't have a total lunar eclipse. We kind of got used to having total lunar eclipses over the last 2 years because we had a tetrad and all 4 were visible from North America. So total lunar eclipses have been seeming like an almost commonplace thing. But now we are entering into a total eclipse desert for lunar eclipses for the next few years. So one of the closest conjunctions next year is August 27th, and that is of Jupiter and Venus, only 4 arc minutes apart, so you'll be able to put them all in the same field of view. That'll be kind of cool. One of the rarer things that's happening next year is Mercury is going to transit the Sun. You might remember in 2012 we had the big transit of Venus, which is even rarer, where Venus passes in front of the Sun, and you can see it as a little black dot. The transit of Venus, or transit of Mercury next year, will appear as a tinier dot, and that occurs on May 9th. And we haven't had one of these since 2006. They're more common. You get a transit of Mercury because Mercury orbits the Sun in a faster, tighter orbit. So you get one of these about every decade, so they're not uncommon. I saw the one in 2006. I was actually doing a public event outside the Flandreau Observatory in Tucson. I did that one. And, but they're kind of cool. Working on the Rosetta mission, very cool. I've been writing about the Rosetta mission. That's very cool. It's been an outstanding mission. I've been following that one. So another thing going on next year that we don't get every year is Mars is at opposition, and that occurs on May 22nd, and Mars is closest to the Earth. Oppositions are getting better, as a matter of fact. We had a string of bad oppositions because Mars is apogee and not apogee, but aphelion and perihelion, to get the term right, correct? Technical term right, varies. So sometimes you can have a good opposition, then usually we start going toward better ones. This one is a prelude to the opposition in 2018, which is going to be nearly as good as the historic opposition of 2003. I took time off to image Mars in 2003. That's how cool the opposition was then. This opposition next year is very favorable. And we also have a few spacecraft going to Mars to take advantage of this window of opportunity to launch. InSight and I believe ExoMars. Usually there's two missions. InSight is a NASA lander that's going to Mars, and ExoMars is a joint, I believe, Roscosmos European Space Agency mission that's going there. Too bad we couldn't have planned a manned mission. I know. And you know, speaking of crewed missions to Mars, in 2018, we're closing in on that window. I have not heard anything about this. Dennis Tito wants to send a pair of astronauts on a Mars flyby. I don't think 2018 is kind of really close with nothing sitting on the pad. So I think that's going to move back. I've heard nothing other than a few years ago when they said, hey, we're going to do it and we're going to try to shoot for 2018. I have not heard any more about that. I think a Mars flyby right now, if certain platforms like SLS and the Falcon 9 Heavy and things like that, this is just my own opinion as a space writer and what from covering this, I think it would be on the grim edge of possibility of what we could pull off once these rockets, but they're not on the pad yet, they're still in development, all these big rockets that could get us to Mars and back. I think a Mars flyby, at least to go there, just to prove, you know, I think the only thing that would be gained from doing a Mars flyby would be, hey, human beings they would break some duration records if they did that. It would be an over 400, 500 day mission. So they would break some human duration records in space. And oh, by the way, this week, speaking of duration records, one of the bigger things happened in space news this week, this year, has been the joint mission, year in space mission that's going on the ISS. I wrote a whole article over on a site called Listosaur, www.listosaur.com, on the 10 greatest science missions, and I'm going to pitch probably to write science missions to watch out for. You know, things that happened this year, like the flying saucer test NASA did, the, of course, New Horizons, the series. You know, we were talking about on the Space Hangout. I think it's kind of cool because I've been into astronomy for 40 years, you know, since I was a kid. This year, we finally got a look at Pluto in Ceres, something that in our textbooks, in the mind of humanity, has been just a tiny little infinitesimal dot that we've never really got a very good look at. Those two places became worlds this year in 2015. So that's very cool. And I haven't turned my brain toward it yet, and I want to do a science roundup of science news stories right off the top of my head for 2016. Juno is going to enter orbit around Jupiter, so that's going to be very cool. Like I said, some Mars missions are going to take off. The Space Hangout's still going on. No, it just ended, so thanks for that comment. But yeah, that's just a very brief summation. I don't know. Oh, also be sure to check out Comet US-10 Catalina. Is a binocular comet right now in the morning sky. And it's going to be getting brighter. It's going to be passing near the bright star Arcturus on January 1st. So it's going to make a very good finder point to aim your binoculars at and try to find it. Comet Catalina. That's one of two comet. I believe it's an X1 Pan-STARRS. We don't have a super bright comet on tap for 2016. That could always change. My criterion in the list to include comets are, I'm looking for comets that are going to be brighter than 10th magnitude and be, you know, binocular comets at least. We don't have a bright comet set for 2016, but you know, that could change. Bright comets are discovered all the time, so the comet of the century could come plowing into the solar system in 2016 and make for an awesome show. Oh, and I include meteor showers, Geminids are going on too, so I'll be talking about this. My goal is to try to do a pre-show. I couldn't with what I was doing for errands, to do a pre-show for the Space Hangout to just kind of warm up and say, hey, here's what we're going to talk about in brief teaser, but I did it after this week, so we'll keep doing this. We're getting into this whole periscoping thing, so I'm going to leave you guys if there's no more questions, and till next week. Enjoy.